Welcome to Gaun Yersoul,
a Rites and Rituals podcast. My name is Victoria Burnham.
My name is Lindy Irving, and we are here to chat about ceremony,
ritual,
spirituality, and how you can weave spirituality into your everyday life through the practice of, bringing ritual in. And it's really lovely to be back here with you again on our whatever podcast it is. It's really nice. So Victoria's got a much nicer shade of lipstick on than me today. What's she like?
I was saying that's what my mother trained me. Always put bright lipstick on. Don't leave the house without.
That is some
good advice. You look fabulous too.
That is some good advice. Well, I've got a new T-shirt on the day, so so I'm making an effort. But today we are talking about the unpredictable nature of life and how, bringing ritual into your life can help keep you grounded no matter what's going on.
Because you never know what's round the corner.
Exactly. And if you just take our wee group, the six of us at Rites and Rituals, as a kind of subset of the wider population, if you like, over the past year to 2 years, each one of us has had to face our own challenges, right? And for some people, major challenges. So we've had loss, we've had serious illness, we have had family issues, we've had unexpected challenges. And right now, one of our wee family is going through something major, which is really what inspired this episode today. And we are sending her and our family all our love and our support and our best wishes. So, life is full of challenges. But as we've said in previous episodes, living a spiritual life doesn't mean to say that you won't get unwell or feel pissed off or be thrown off course.
It's not a magic charm.
No, it's not. But what it does do, I think, is that it helps you meet those moments differently. So it gives you a feeling that you're not alone in whatever it is you're going through. It gives you a set of practices that you can use to kind of help ground you amidst whatever's going on. It's a bit like you're walking through life and life is good or life is okay, probably not perfect, it rarely is, but you're walking through life, you're fairly sure-footed, and then something comes along and completely knocks you off your feet. And all of a sudden you're floating around in mid-air and you just don't know how to land. And what ritual does, living a spiritual life and engaging in spiritual practice does, is it can help bring you back down to earth and feel a sense of control when that control seems to have been taken from you. It also helps you feel connected to yourself, to the earth, to those around you, and of course to something greater than yourself. It allows you to sit with the discomfort and still be able to find a sense of gratitude for whatever else, the wonderful things that you've got on going on in your life. It allows you to create space for whatever's happening, not as a way that you bypass the hard stuff, but rather than that you can just sit with it and learn from it and grow from it and be transformed by it. So, living a spiritual life does not mean to say that you get to bypass pain, but what it does do is it can help create a path through the pain.
Which is, I come across that quite a bit when people say, well, how can you be spiritual when there's so much pain and trauma and hatred and war and famine and general, even day-to-day family stuff happen in your life? How can you believe in something that is greater and good because all of that is going on?
Absolutely, and that's probably one of the biggest things that turn people off religion, turn people off faith, turn people off spirituality. But I think that comes from this, dogma, this shame-based religion that pain is some sort of punishment for something Because if you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and you're going through something major, you need to know that that is not as a result of you not being pious enough, you not praying enough, you not being spiritual enough, you not being a good enough person. That's not how spirituality works.
Or in a previous life.
Yes, this life, a previous life. That's not how spirit works. As I say, that's a throwback to shame-based religion, and we at Rites and Rituals do not subscribe to that. These things that we're talking about, pain and war, and these are all things that happen while we're walking this human journey. And maybe if we were all more spiritual and more grounded and could connect with each other more, these things wouldn't happen just as much. But that's being idealistic, and it's no, in a world of 8 billion people, it's very hard to create that. So these things are going to happen. War's going to happen. Abuse is going to happen. Neglect is going to happen. People are going to be angry. People are going to be opinionated. People are going to be hurting each other in all sorts of horrible, horrible ways. That has got nothing to do with the sacred and spirit. This being connected to something bigger. People, I think, who think like that are thinking of spirit as this God that has form, this
who's
man
judging,
that's sitting up there and who's judging and who's keeping a record so that you can be, punished accordingly. But also that can look down and think, well, I'm going to give you cancer. I'm going to start a war here just to see what happens. I'm a bit bored, so I'm going to get some conflict going on
playing
over
a chess
here.
game.
I don't think that's how it works. It doesn't make any sense to me in any way, shape or form. The sacred is an energy. It's an energy that exists within us, around us, through us, around the universe. It's something that we can tap into, we can feel supported by, as I said a minute ago, turning towards the sacred in times of pain helps you feel that you're not alone with whatever it is you're going through. But that's not been the cause of it. The sacred's not been the cause of it. When I was diagnosed with cancer, a year and a half ago.
And what was your first knee-jerk reaction when they actually said, look, we've discovered you have cancer?
Oh, well, my daughter was sitting there, so it was to turn towards her and make sure she was okay. Because we absolutely assumed that they were going to say, no, it's benign and it's, you're absolutely fine. We'd been sitting in the waiting room saying, right, we'll probably be out within the next half hour. Should we go for a wee Indian? There was an Indian across the road. Should we go for a Indian? Then we'll get a bottle of bubbles on the way home and we'll celebrate. And we went into the room and the guy said, look, can you see this? They had the picture up, it was breast cancer, so the picture up. And I saw it straight away. I knew, because I'd Googled beforehand.
Dr. Google.
Yeah, and so I saw the pictures of what it might look like if it's cancer. So I kind of knew as soon as I walked into the room. And he said, look, there's changes. Can you see these changes? And I don't like that language. What does that mean, changes? Changes could mean anything. And we said to him, when you say changes, do you mean cancer? And he said, yes, cancer. And my immediate reaction was, she was just sitting behind me, was to turn and take her hand and say, are you okay? When she said, yeah, I'm okay. For me, it was what it was. At least I knew what I was dealing with now, because I had a long period of knowing that there was something that wasn't right. I wasn't feeling right. I wasn't feeling well. And people kept saying, there's nothing wrong with you. And it's the menopause and all that. So at least now I had something to hang my coat on. And I knew that there would be a path through it. I didn't know what that was going to entail, because I didn't know at that point what the cancer was and how, if it was really bad. But at least I knew, now I know what we're dealing with and we can move through it. But I think that's a really good question, because how do you turn towards faith, or how do you turn towards spirit or sacred, or whatever name you want to give it, when your life's been upended?
Yes, when life gives you lemons.
When life gives you lemons.
To be fair, I do love a lemon, though.
Swap them for limes and make a mojito.
Exactly.
But, but how do you do that? Because that's no easy, right? But, and as I said a minute ago, people have to know that what's going on with them is not something that they've done. My cancer wasn't a result of spirit being pissed off with me in any way, shape or form. It might have been a result of my lifestyle choices in the past. I don't know. Eating too much sugar, drinking a wee bit too many glasses of wine. I don't know, but it's certainly not spirit, God saying, you need punished and this is how I'm going to punish you. But one of the things I think that is important is that we cannot just turn to the sacred when things go wrong.
Yeah, it's not a check-in card and say, okay, rest, save me.
Exactly.
But also, when you're dealt a hand like that, it's okay to feel angry and pissed off and rage.
And resentful and yeah, absolutely.
You know, we don't
it's
all
okay
go,
to feel all those things.
It's God's way. No.
Yeah, and there were neither of those things. You know, I didn't think it was God's way, and I certainly didn't feel resentment or anger or stress. It just, for me, it was what it was. This is the earthly journey I'm walking, and as part of that, I've developed cancer. You know, 1 in 2 people get cancer. Why should somebody else get it and no me? You know, that doesn't make sense to me either. Of course, I wish I hadn't got it, and it's been a long journey the last year and a half. But there was no sense of anything other than just sitting with it. Mm-hmm. And saying, okay, because I think what some people can do is when something upends them, they focus on the feelings that they get from it. I'm really pissed off. I'm really anxious. I'm really stressed. But they don't always take time to just sit with what is at the core of that. So for me, it was important. One of the first things I did, you know, I found out in the evening that I had the cancer. The next day was to go to my wee altar. And when we talk about an altar, that word altar freaks the feck out of people, right? But it's just a wee place that you can go to where you can focus on creating this connection between you and your God. You know, for some people, going into a church creates that connection. When they step through the doors of the church, they're leaving behind the noise of the everyday life, and they're just being with the divine. And us, you've got a wee altar, I've got a wee altar. It doesn't need to be anything special. It could be a windowsill with a candle on it. And, you know, I have a few wee objects that are meaningful to me. Maybe they've been given to me by my grandsons or friends or whatever. But it's just a place you can go to that becomes this kind of tangible space where you can sit and make this connection. And you can sit in silence, you can play some music, you can meditate, you can ask questions, whatever is right for you. But so it was really important for me the next day to sit at my altar and just be with that. Oh my God, I've got cancer in my body, I've got a tumour in my body. And there's probably going to be a long journey ahead of me. And I don't know what that journey holds at this point. But there are things that I want to show gratitude for, because gratitude is hugely important. We had a whole session on it.
The other night, yeah.
The other night. And how you can always find gratitude. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. So I was really grateful that they'd found it. Mm. And I was really grateful that at that point the indicators were that it was very early, it was a very small tumour. I wasn't going to need chemo. It would be probably surgery and a week's worth of radiation. Now, that didn't turn out to be true, and I did need chemo, and it was a lot more involved. But at that point, in that moment in time, I was really grateful that they'd found it. I was grateful that I lived in a country where I was going to get this free treatment, and that it was probably going to be treated very, very quickly with really professional people. I was really grateful that I had family around about me that were going to be able to support me. And if I needed to be taken to appointments and chemo trips and things like that, that they would be there for me. So I had so much to be grateful for. And that was my focus. The cancer was there. There was nothing I could do about it at that point. But what I could do was focus on what I was grateful for other than the cancer. So the cancer didn't become the only thing that was going on in my life. It was just another wee part of what was happening in my life. Does that make sense?
I mean, yes, absolutely. And I do think, I mean, not to blow smoke up your arse, but I will. You
Go
are
for it.
incredible. You are an incredibly strong person. You're driven. You're motivated. You're always looking for the positive in everything. And I think that if you go back 20 years, say, I know you've been on a spiritual journey probably longer than that. If you go right back before, how do you think you would have handled that if you didn't have spirit in your life? That you recognise it now?
I'd probably have been super stressed, super anxious. I would have focused on the fact that, oh my God, I've got cancer. That probably means I'm going to die.
So you catastrophise. You go to, I'm going to die.
I would have.
Destroy everybody's life.
That's a natural place your brain takes you, right? And, there were times when my brain was like, well, what if this is stage 4 cancer? Because I think when you get a diagnosis like that, it changes all the time. So it went from being a wee small tumour to quite a big tumour. It went from being you need 1 operation to you need 2 operations. It went from it's contained within your breast to, oh no, it's on the move. It's spread to your lymph nodes. So it was changing all this time. And often the waiting is the worst part. You're waiting for scans, you're waiting for results, And so, of course, your brain takes you to places such as, what if this is stage 4? Which, if stage 4 cancer, that means it's no longer curable. It doesn't mean to say you're going to die in the next couple of weeks, but it does mean you're probably going to die of cancer. Unless you get hit by a bus, you're probably going to die of cancer. Sorry, just put it out there. It means it's spread from its primary source to other places in your body. And while they can try their best to manage it, they can't cure it. Now, people can still live, relatively long lives, maybe 10 years, maybe even 15 years. But at some point, your body's probably going to succumb to that. So there were points where I thought, well, what if this is stage 4 cancer? And I was in my strength, my resilience, thinking, well, I'll deal with that when the time comes. And again, my brain automatically now, after all the work I've done in it, takes me to a place of gratitude. Well, I am so lucky that I got to meet my 3 grandsons. That was the farewell. It was 2 grandsons at the time and 3 grandsons now, but I'm so grateful I got to meet and spend so much time with my 2 grandsons. I'm so grateful that I've got to live the life that I have. And my life has not been without challenges. Of course it has not, as we just said. But so it just took me to a place of gratitude. I think, as I said a minute ago, it cannot be, as you said, just a get out of jail free card. You can't be reactive and just ignore your altar and ignore the fact that you're a spiritual being and that you're connected to something greater. And then something happens and all of a sudden you turn to it. It's like I've met people over the years who have been religious people, really quite religious people. And I used to do a lot of work, a lot of coaching with women over in Northern Ireland. And I would meet them and they would say, my life's not working for me in this way. And they would feel, I'm not praying enough. I'm not connected to God enough. Because that's conditioned in them. And I would say, well, talk me through that. What do you mean you're not praying enough? And, well, I go down, pray, please, God, help me through this. And then what happens? Well, then I go about my daily life. That doesn't work. It's a 2-way street. You have to do your part in whatever healing you need brought in to your life. So you have to be connected with your God continuously. It has to be. The hint is in the name, spiritual practice. It has to be practiced. It has to be daily. And it doesn't have to be big ceremonial rituals. It can be small, sitting at your altar and lighting a candle. It can be placing your hand in your heart and saying, oh my goodness, I am so grateful for the life I have around me at the moment. It can be writing in your journal. It's a bit like physical activity and workouts. What other people saying to you, oh, you should do this. You should go on a rowing machine. You should go in the weights machine. Doesn't really work. You have to find what works for you. And spiritual practice is no different. So just now I have a friend who is going through a lot, feeling quite overwhelmed, would not describe herself as a spiritual person. And if I said, sit at a wee table and light a candle, she'd hunt me out of her house. That's all voodoo. But I also happen to know that she used to love having a creative journal. just kind of come away from it a wee bit. But what I'm going to do is buy her a new journal and a nice pen. And I'm going to say, why don't you, the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, just sit and write it in your book. Nobody's going to read it. But just sit and write it. You can write whatever you like. You can rage. You can swear. You can, call people out. You can do whatever you need to. But in my mind, she's not just putting words on a page. She is writing to something. So that is in her way writing to spirit.
Yeah.
That is being witnessed in some way. Even though no physical, in this earthly world, nobody's going to read it. Something is witnessing that and holding that for her.
And I think that it's like putting it out into the universe. And, we talk about prayer and we automatically go into religion zone. But I believe in the power of prayer, collective prayer especially. But it's because it's putting positive thoughts and feelings out there. And as a community, if you have that strength to put, the prayer circles are all around the world, and I think they're beautiful things. A lot of them obviously belong to certain religions or, have format and form, and you must say these particular words at this time. But it's that fear of using words that are associated with organised religion, like prayer and God and all that. But the power of prayer is just positive words that you put out there, whether you're writing them, speaking them collectively with a group of people. It's just, it's kind of healing.
And a prayer is just a conversation between you and whatever you think is up there or around you. It's just a conversation. So a song can be a prayer.
Yeah.
Obviously a hymn can be a prayer, a prayer can be a prayer, a story can be a prayer. It's whatever intention you bring to it. So we do lots of ceremonies, we do lots of funeral ceremonies where they'll say, we'll have a hymn. Now, if people sing hymn with intention, if people recognise that a hymn is actually a prayer, and that through that we are trying to make a connection with something greater than ourselves, it can become wonderful. It's beautiful. If people see a hymn as being a throwback to religion, and I'm not religious. When I first started doing ceremonial work, people would at least pretend they were singing hymns. So there would be a funeral ceremony, you could see them like just voicing, miming. That's what I do because I've got the worst voice ever, but you can see them miming it. Nowadays they don't even pretend.
No, they don't even look.
They just look at you as if to say, I'm no singing and you can't make me. And because they are saying that belongs to a religion that I don't follow and I don't understand, I don't want any part of. But I'm kind of missing a trick in seeing that, well, actually, somebody's left this world, they're moving on, and this hymn is a conversation with the energy that holds wherever they're moving to.
And more often than not, you're honouring that person's wishes because they may have said, I would like, a hymn at my ceremony, or the deceased loved ones, especially if they're older generation. And what is wrong with honouring somebody's feelings?
Absolutely, 100%.
And I always, when I obviously doing the funeral ceremonies and you're talking to your families and you ask if they would like any prayers of any religion, whatever they feel, more than not, they'll say, oh, no, he wasn't. And I'll say, well, the words of committal that we use, so the committal is the moment, the more formal moment where we say our farewells. You may have a curtain closing, everyone's standing, and it's just I find it a very gentle, beautiful moment. And the words that I tend to choose are a prayer in itself. And it's basically just wishing somebody a lovely journey. But that, to me, is a prayer. And people feel very comfortable. They go, oh, no, I don't know the Lord's Prayer. Have you got a prayer? And I says, well, the words that I say are almost prayer-like. And they'd never come back and go, oh, no, that's not
Take
right. They quite like.
I call it a gentle prayer.
Oh, do you use the prayer word as well for that moment?
Yes,
that's really interesting.
I call it a gentle prayer. I say, would you like a prayer?
You have
and I go, what do you mean by
well.
prayer? And I'll say, well, you can have whatever kind of prayer you like. Yeah, it can be the Lord's Prayer, but it could also just be a gentle prayer, which is just something along the line as go safely, Joe. Travel with our love into the arms of, and you can have God, you can have spirit, you can have sacred, you can have peace, you can have whatever, and may you be held there in comfort and in grace until the day you can be reunited with your loved ones once again. And they go, oh, that's lovely. And are you happy when we're using the word God? Yeah, no, you can use the word God. There we go, we're using the word God. If they say, if you sometimes
Yeah,
you
they
see
get
them,
a bit icky. Oh, I don't know.
okay, well, I just say peace. Or will I just say, loved ones that are waiting for you. There's always a way of changing your language to suit the person. But if we focus on funerals for a moment, because we're talking about ritual and how ritual can ground us in times when our lives are upended. And, there's rarely a time when your life is upended more than when someone is taken from you very, whether it be suddenly or you knew it was coming. We have this beautiful ritual of having a funeral ceremony where we come together in community, and if it's done right, it's a really beautiful way to remember and to honour and to assist a family with their grief, right? What we don't have, and we're not good at, are rituals that we can bring in between the moment of that person passing and the funeral ceremony itself.
More so in our Western culture.
Yeah. And there are so many more rituals that we could bring in. So in some cultures, it's the family that sits and cleanses the body and puts cream, all over the body, and maybe wraps the body or dresses the body and brushes the hair. But as they do it, they're reciting chants or prayers, or they're talking to the person. In this country, the person dies, they're usually whipped away within an hour.
Yeah.
And we don't see them again.
And in fact, just the other day,
unless we go and visit them. Yeah.
I had a conversation with a family the other day, and she's quite young. She lost her dad, and she sort of went, "Oh, I don't even know where he is now." And I said, "Well, don't worry. He's safe. He's with the funeral director. That they're, because in their minds they're thinking there's some, hospital morgue, whatever. And yes, it obviously has to be very clinical, but if they're not informed, then their brain goes to where are they? Are they lying alone? Are they cold? Are they, So we do have that. And because of the way our system is, we have to wait quite a while for slots at the crematorium or the graveside. So you do find your families are left in limbo. They've all got so much horrible red tape to get through. If you've been there, you've been there. It's hell. Our system is not very well structured to support families through grief and through their organising affairs, but they're left with nothing. There's nothing for them to do. What can you do?
No sense of control, apart from paperwork.
Yes.
Apart from paperwork, go and register it and go and... why can it... And by and large, funeral directors are really good if a family says, I want to keep them here overnight. I did a funeral recently for a man. His wife had died. They knew, she'd had cancer, and she'd actually been to one of my ceremonies, and she knew she had cancer. She knew that her life was limited, and she asked that I do her ceremony. But he said, the funeral director, I want to keep her here tonight. Mm-hmm. And they slept in the same bed that night.
That's beautiful.
Slept beside his wife for one last time. How beautiful is that? How many times have they slept in that bed together? And he just wanted her there one last time. Who knows the conversations they had with her? Why is that not normalised?
Yeah, why are the funeral directors called out at 2-3 in the morning to pick up the deceased?
Take the person away, and as I say, often you might not see that person again at all.
Because that's what if you phone, you'll phone maybe if it's somebody at home who's been dying, phone the hospice nurse, they may be there. Who's the next person I phone? Oh, I phone the funeral director. And the funeral directors are great. They come in, they're, very compassionate. They take your deceased away, but it's like tick the box. So why do we have to tick every single box when actually we can slow the process down? It's different when people are in hospital and they maybe pass and, you're kind of... But even when my dad passed in hospital, he was lucky enough, he was in a side room. And I went in, it was maybe about 5 or 6 in the morning. I'd missed whatever had happened. But he was there and, well, obviously he was there.
Can you imagine if you walked in and he wasn't there?
No, he was there.
Sorry, Victoria's dad, we're not laughing at you.
Sorry, Mike. But they were the nursing staff, I didn't feel rushed at all. So I had that time with him, just me and him, and played a bit of music, washed him down just with some wipes and, kind of a wee T-shirt on him because they're in that awful gown, aren't they, and things. But I would never have been able to do that if I hadn't been working the way I've been working in the last few years. There's absolutely no way, because I probably wouldn't have gone in to see him. When my brother died, absolutely not. Wasn't going to go and see him. No way. But that's it. He's away. But because of the way that we work, and I had the work that I wasn't frightened. And it is fear a lot of the time. I didn't feel rushed. I thought that everybody can wait for me, and they did. Very respectful, and that felt good. I wasn't there for when he passed, and I am a bit pissed at myself for that.
That's the same with my dad.
I could have been if I'd stayed overnight. I like my sleep too much.
Well, a lot of people think it happens the way it was meant to happen.
I think so. So doing that little ritual with my dad gave me a sense of peace and closure of some description.
Yeah. And what way to honour him?
Well, I hope so. I mean, he was the biggest athist that ever,
Yeah, which is fine.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, yeah.
But the weird stuff that was happening in the room at the time, I thought, I got the last laugh.
Yes,
Dad, I knew.
See, I told you.
I told you.
See, I told you.
But I think that's the thing about giving families, when they are hit with such trauma, whether it's a loss of a loved one or an illness or even somebody just moving to the side of the world, that's...
Dumping you.
Yeah.
Somebody dumping you.
Oh, yeah, getting shocked.
Getting shocked.
When you're 16, that's hell.
But these are all things, when you're 16, that's a big deal.
Huge.
You get shocked, right? It's the biggest thing in the world. But having these wee practices you can bring in. So again, if we go back to the funerals, usually what happens is somebody dies, they're whisked away, and then all of a sudden the family are just in organising mode.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're told to do. You have to go and register it. You have to decide where do you want the funeral, when do you want the funeral, what music do you want for the funeral. Music becomes this huge thing.
Yeah.
And it would be really nice or imagine what it would be like. And that's an important part. I know they have to decide what they want, and ideally that's conversations they have with people before they pass. But if families were to get together and just sit and share stories, maybe each choosing a photograph of the person, their favourite photograph, and just sitting with a cup of tea or a wee dram of whiskey or whatever it is. And I've chosen this photo of my mum because that was the day we all went to the beach down at Ayr. And I remember Mum laughing as we were running. That kind of thing. Imagine the power and the healing that would bring to people. And then the night before the funeral, instead of everybody getting all wound up and just everybody sitting in silence and maybe writing wee letters or creating something between them and community that they can place in the coffin. Imagine the healing that would bring, as opposed to just this going into organisation mode. I just think we're missing a trick. There's so many different ways that we could approach it.
I love watching the old, I mean, it happens now, but in Ireland, when they have, the bodies, the deceased will be in the front room before the funeral, a couple of days, they'll be laid out. I love that thought that everybody's walking around with plate of sandwiches and a wee dram in one hand, and there's wains running about the casket underneath. And I mean, I know we see that in films, and maybe that's not reality, but I love that feeling that it's normal and everybody is there. And of course, there is their loved one in the room, so of course you're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember my sister died when she was 23. I was 21 at the time. And my dad built... in our house, in the dining room, he put up some sort of wire or something, and he put a big curtain across it and brought her home.
Really?
And she sat on the dining table for 3-4 days in the lead up to
goodness.
The lead up to her funeral. And as you said, everybody came into the house, and as people come into the house, whoever was opening the door was to say, "Would you like to see Janice?" And the people were freaked out, freaked the feck out.
That's so unusual for this part of the world.
You. It was my dad that did it. But here's the thing. Every single night he sat... Oh, I'm going to start crying.
Oh, bless.
Every night he sat beside her the whole night. And that was the first dead person I'd seen, was my sister. And I remember she was really cold and really waxy to touch. But he encouraged us to sit and to let her hear us laughing. And my dad would have described himself as an atheist. My dad would have said he was an atheist, and yet he would say, let her hear you laughing.
Isn't that wonderful?
And he would sit all night and hold her hand and share stories with her. It was such a beautiful, now looking back, because you're right, it is quite unusual. It was such a beautiful thing, but it brought him such an immense amount of healing.
And he was the most, policeman and man's man. And
big man's man. But, her death broke him. He was never the same again after she died.
But he was wise enough to have he followed his instinct instead of letting everybody take over. He took control of that.
She's coming home and I want her here with me and I want her as long as I can have her, sort of thing. Which was a ritual in itself, that bringing her home, that sitting with her and sharing memories and stories. That in itself is a ritual, and it was a great way to honour her, and it was a great way to bring him comfort and healing. I think at the time my mother was too traumatised that she didn't do it, but certainly he did, and yeah, it was lovely. So if we go back to what we originally started talking about, this idea that when life throws you a giant curveball, you can always take time to just stop and to just be and to just sit and to engage with whatever there is out there that's bigger than us, and either to speak your truth to spirit or to ask spirit for help, or just to speak the words into the silence. But it's important that you are nurturing your spiritual life, so that when these difficult times come, you are much better placed. It's like building your spiritual armour. If you're sitting down at your altar every day, in times of joy as well as in times of hardship, and you're, in times of joy, you're sitting there and you're saying, oh God, I'm so thankful today that I get to go and be with my friend Victoria and to create this lovely podcast, and I'm really grateful that we managed to get a coffee and bring it in with us today. I'm really grateful that my newest wee grandson's here, and I've got 3 of them, and I'm living with them at the moment. It's just so that's every bit as important. But what it's also doing is building that spiritual armour, so that, because who knows what could happen to me next week. But if I'm doing that every day, if I'm in communion with spirit, and I'm having this relationship and I'm nurturing that relationship, just like any relationship, it has to be nurtured, then when something really difficult happens, I'm much better placed to be able to deal with that.
Draw strength from
it and resilience from it, and make sense of it and see a path through it.
It helps you rationalise things as well, doesn't it? Because you're grounded. It's okay when you get that first news or something to spin out. That's okay. That's because our brains, and we're only human. But as you say, I love that phrase. If we have got a spiritual armour on, then we know we're being held.
Always, never alone. Never alone. There's always, that energy around you, holding you and letting you know that whatever happens, it's going to be okay. Because I knew with my cancer, whatever happens, it's going to be okay. And I don't mean I knew I was going to get through it. It's going to be okay, whatever happens. So if they had said it's stage 4 and, it's life limiting, it would still have been okay. There would have been a path through it. Because, all of us, 8 billion of us in this earth, there is one destination.
We're all going.
For all of us. We are all going whether we like it or not. So that's going to come. For some of us, it'll come quicker than others, unfortunately, sadly. But it's going to come. And so I know that when it's my time to go, however it's going to be, and it's going to be okay. So, takeaways from today is that you can't live life without there being challenges. Whether it's wee challenges, you go out to your car and you've got a flat tyre, or huge challenges, you're diagnosed with cancer, or indeed somebody you love is taken from you. But there are lots of tools available, spiritual tools available at your disposal that can help you make sense of what you're going through, can help keep you grounded. Now, whether that is meditating, if that's something that you're into, whether it's just sitting at a wee altar that you create, or, going for a walk, as long as you do it with intention. I remember the day after I was diagnosed with cancer, going for a walk around the fields at my home with intention of just, okay, this is now, my life has shifted. And I don't know how it's going to look, because I didn't know, was I going to be able to do ceremonies? Was I going to have to give up my work? Was I going to have to, what's going to happen? Was I going to have money to pay my mortgage? All these things that you worry about. Just to sit with that and to speak your worries out into the ether, out into the wind, but knowing that they're being heard and they're being held, and that something bigger than you is there supporting you. So that's our takeaway from today. Does this place feel like a nice place
Lovely.
to leave it? Thank you so much
Thank
for joining us. Once again, we want to send our love and our best wishes out to our beautiful member of Rites and Rituals. And
I'd like to thank you for being so honest about your cancer journey as well, because I've always been a little bit afraid to ask, because that's something that we...
There's no... I am an open book.
I know, but you don't want to intrude on people's...
No, I'll talk about anything, me.
I know. Talk shite for hours. But
no,
yes.
I mean, it's one of those things that's happened, and, I don't revisit it unless I kind of have to.
I think that would give a lot of people sort of support and comfort to be more open about what they're feeling and how they're feeling. But yes, thank you.
Great. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers.